Azimus, a short sci-fi story written by Arion Sandoval. Chapter 1. Welcome to Azimus was barely legible on the weathered aluminum sign, paint long stripped off with only a faint indentation of letters remaining. The dust storms had seen to that. Scary how poorly it has held up to the elements, Gil thought, his lips involuntarily pursing into a nervous smirk. But it was humanity's first open-air outpost after all, and the planetary probe that discovered Azimus had malfunctioned. It was correct in identifying a breathable atmosphere and usable water under the dusty orange surface. However, it had improperly measured the planet's rotational spin rate. This led to an error in wind speed calculations. What had appeared to be light breezes in the data were revealed to the first unlucky settlers as raging dust storms. Whoops. Well, I guess that's why I'm here. With terracotta-colored dust swirling in small eddies of wind at his feet, Gil surveyed his surroundings in the drop-off zone. In fact, someone should have been there waiting. Nearby in a large hatched stainless steel container on a small trailer sat the cargo of supplies Gil had hitched a ride out from Earth with. Various instruments, food rations, newly improved solar panels, and Gil's own invention, the Rezopubs. Up above, gazing down from the heavens, sat Azimus's two moons. In place of clouds of water vapor, large, dark orange billows of dust were carried by atmospheric winds. Gil's eyes took it all in and returned to the scoured surface of the unwelcoming welcome sign. Don't worry, the houses aren't quite as bad. Gil started in surprise. He had been so deep in thought he had somehow failed to notice his ride had arrived behind him. He quickly turned and caught the piercing eyes of a tan and freckled middle-aged woman with short salt and pepper hair. She grinned wryly, climbing out of the sleek rover she had pulled up on. "I hope so," was all Gil could summon. Then, regaining his composure, "You must be Dana? Thanks for coming to get me. I'm Gil." When she reached him, she tilted her head up and gazed deep into his eyes, shaking his hand with the grip that surprised him. "Yep, no problem. Heck, we should be thanking you. Welcome to Azimus. Appreciate you joining us out here." She quickly released his hand and surveyed their surroundings. "I'll take care of the rest of this." With that, she disattached the small trailer she had been towing full of data samples and specimens and maneuvered it into the recess Gil had unloaded the supplies from. "I hope the gravity isn't giving you too much trouble. When we first arrived, me and Jan were pretty sick for a few days, but most of the others had a relatively smooth transition. Well, smooth as you can hope, all things considered. I'll manage." The truth was, the extra gravity, 22.2% to be exact, was already taking a much greater toll on Gil than he had anticipated. An invisible net cast over his whole being. Along with the encumbering weight, a nausea had slowly been building since he had set foot on Azimus. No amount of training modules can get close to the real thing. With adrenaline pumping his limited store of energy, Gil was relieved to collapse into the passenger seat of the solar rover. Dana hitched the shiny new trailer of supplies to the back of the vehicle and returned to the driver's seat. The cart was in gear and rolling by the time her door clicked closed. No bullshit. I think I'm gonna like her. As they turned and looped onto the barely visible path back to the settlement, Dana let out a sigh. "I still can't believe they stuck you on that thing." "Yeah, I thought it was a joke when they first proposed it to me, but I guess here I am." "Well, if your Rezobub works half as good as they say it does, you'll be a godsend." "Yes, ma'am. I hope you're right." The electric vehicle glided virtually silently except for the sound of tires along the pebble-strewn dirt. Hot, dense air seemed to push in on Gil's lungs with every breath. Looking up at the two pale moons in the sky, he remembered the dream he had 6 years ago. Lucid dreams were nothing new to him, but somehow this one felt different. It began at his grandparents' ranch in Texas, just out of Austin. It appeared how it did in VR captures from the early 2030s when his dad was still a baby, back when they were still growing vast fields of genetically engineered corn. But in all those it had been daytime. In the eerie glow of the moonlight, the countless rows swayed in the warm breeze, a menacing maize army. Rustling husks and patient hands ready for a call to action from a long-forgotten deity. Although the terrain was that of his grandparents' farm, the sky seemed to hold facsimiles of the moons Gil was now staring at. Taking them in, he felt an electric buzz of excitement. He could hardly help wondering about that dream, and what its connection could be all these light years from Earth. "Home sweet home," Dana dryly rasped as the rover rounded the bottom edge of a large plateau in a sort of horseshoe shape. Within it, nestled like a frail egg in a treetop nest, sat the small settlement they had named Kalakuta. In 2 columns of 7 sat the earthen domes that acted as living units. Next to each sat their gardens, or rather, what was left of them. At the ends deepest in the horseshoe sat a large multi-use dome. The small round buildings which started a beaming white had been scoured into splotchy earth-tone camouflage resembling a congregation of militant ladybugs. Getting closer, Gil could see the emaciated state of the gardens that were so crucial to the settlers' survival. Makeshift dust blockers were attached to small walls futilely hoping to guard the crops. The green tops of potatoes stuck out of the ground of one mound, wilted in the heat and leaning from so many days of heavy wind. Small pyramids of sand convened at the base of their stalks, in on the conspiracy to bury the flora in a grave of grit. Huddled in the shade of the largest dome's awning was a congregation of the other inhabitants waiting to greet the new arrival. "Everyone's been so excited to meet you, the first new flesh and blood person we've seen in 7 years." "Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like." Gil tried to sympathize. Not yet, Dana chuckled, but I figure you're in for this for the long haul with the rest of us all the same now. I really am, aren't I? The delayed weight of this choice had finally decided to truly hit. Everything is heavier on Azimus. Before he could marinate in his thoughts, they eased past the dome, next to where the camp's other rover was parked. So we knew you'd be quite exhausted after your travels, but figured we'd give you a hot meal and introduce ourselves before we get you settled into Eugene's dome. Of course, if you just want to go straight to resting, everyone will understand. Gil honestly pondered for a second, then resolutely decided if they had been kind enough to cook him a meal with their limited resources that he might as well put his best foot forward. After all, it's not like he was going to get a chance to make another good first impression for a long time. Possibly ever. I'd love a warm meal, but I'm not sure how great of company I'll be. Oof! An involuntary grunt escaped as he first stepped foot again under the increased gravity. He focused what little energy he had left and started towards the small group waiting as patiently as they could about 20 yards away. Exhausted but determined, he trod on towards his welcoming.